This is the best, easiest, and definitely most fun to learn how to draw in Procreate. If you have never opened up Procreate before, or if you're just getting started, then this is the tutorial you need. You will learn how to use features like alpha lock, how you can create gradients in Procreate, using drawing guides, and a lot more, all while you create this stunning art piece. So you will learn how to use Procreate and feel proud at the same time. What else could you want? And once you have finished following this tutorial, you will feel confident enough to create your own art pieces in Procreate, or you can go ahead and watch one of the many tutorials that I have here on this channel. So come on, let's dive right in. So during this tutorial, I'm going to assume that this is the first time you are opening up Procreate on your iPad, and then this is what you'll see. You'll see these example artworks, either to motivate you or scare you, I'm not sure, but at least it shows you the capabilities of Procreate. But of course, we are going to create our own masterpiece. And the first thing we need is a canvas to work on. And to create a canvas, you can tap the plus here in the upper right, and then you'll see these standard sizes, but we are going to create our own special size by tapping this icon. And then here you can decide what the width should be. We are going for 2,300. And then here the height, we'll set that to 3,000. And then here at the top, you can change the name of this canvas. If you are going to follow my tutorials, then you will need this size more often. And it's handy to just name this canvas 2,300 by 3,000, something like this. That way you can easily find it in your menu. You don't have to change the color profile here. You don't need to do anything with the time-lapse settings unless you want to have these time lapses that Procreate automatically creates. If you want them to take up less space on your iPad, then you can lower the resolution and the quality. And here under Canvas Properties, if you like, you could change the standard background color. If you'd like to work on a black canvas, totally fine. You can pick your color here, but we are going to stick with white for now. And then we'll just tap the little check mark. And now our canvas has opened up. And I just want to show you, you can go back to the gallery. If you want to use this size again, next time, if you tap the plus, you will find this custom canvas size over here. So that's for the next time you are following a tutorial. So now we are in the canvas interface. If you use two fingers and pinch, you can make your canvas smaller, you can rotate it, and if you pinch quickly, it'll get full size again. But we are going to make our canvas a little bit smaller because we are going to need to see the sides of our canvas. We will also be using a special color palette. If you tap the little circle here, you will find your color palettes over here. You can import one by tapping the plus, or if you have downloaded the color palette on your iPad, you should also be able to just tap that color palette and it'll import to Procreate automatically. I usually set my color menu to disk, showing the disk here and the color palette over here. But you can also use the classic option, the harmony option, where you can pick different options here. You can find complementary colors easily, or split complementary colors. This is easy or handy when you want to create your own color palettes, your own color combinations. And over here you have value. In case you need to enter a hexadecimal code, for instance, you can do that here. But I'll go back to disk. Then over here you have the little brush icon. That's where you can find all of your brushes. And mine tend to switch around every once in a while. Not sure why that's happening, but that's Procreate just being a little bit crazy. So here you'll find your brushes. And this is the Procreate library. But if you tap this little arrow downward, you can always go back to libraries, and then you'll also find the classic library. Those are the Procreate brushes from before the recent Procreate update. And of course, you can also create your own brush libraries, your own combinations of brush packs by tapping the plus here. But we'll go back to the Procreate library. Then we'll go to basics over here, the basic brushes, and we will use the Ringaruna. And then we'll go back to that color menu, and we will pick this fifth color in this first row. Now here on the left, you will see these sliders. These are for the brushes. The lower slider is for the opacity. So a lower opacity means your strokes will be more transparent, but we will set this to 100%. And this is the size slider. Now also, if your pen is close to the slider, it'll move quickly. And if you move it to the right, it'll move slowly. So that's handy if you need to be precise. Now let's say we go for 30%. You can also tap this and then tap the plus in case you want to save that size. Then it's easy. You can always go back to your saved size. Now this specific brush has pressure sensitivity set to size. That means if you are using an Apple pencil or another pencil that has pressure sensitivity, that the harder you press, the thicker the stroke will become. So if you press lightly, it's thin, and if you press harder, it'll become thick. Now I don't want this line, so I'm going to undo this. An easy way to undo your strokes in Procreate is tapping with 2 fingers on your screen. Or if you want to redo it, you'll tap with 3 fingers. Or you can simply use the buttons over here to undo or redo. Now concerning the pressure sensitivity, I also want to show you something in the menu. You can go to the wrench, then to prefs, and then over here you'll find pressure and smoothing. And if you go in there, you'll see this line, this graph. Now this is what mine looks like. You can play around with this. This is what works nicely for me, but it really depends on how heavy-handed you are. I tend to use very light pressure, and this works nicely for me. If you need some more stabilization or motion filtering on all your brush strokes, if you tend to have shaky hands, then you can also play around with these settings. Now the first thing we are going to do is create a hill shape. And we will start like at the center point. If you have the center, the vertical center, start about here. And we will make a wobbly line to the other side. From the left all the way to the right, make sure that it connects to the sides of your canvas. And then we are going to fill this lower area, and you can do that by dragging your colored circle into that area. Don't press it too long, then it'll just switch to your previous color. So we need to drag it in like this. Now let's say your color is spilling all over, or you are getting a weird little edge here. Then you might need to adjust your color drop threshold. Let me undo this and show you how you can do that. You can drag your color on there and then hold and slide to the left or right. You'll see the threshold here at the top. So go all the way to the right until it nearly spills, then just a little bit back. Now we are going to make a new layer on top of this. This is one layer. Here you'll find the layer menu. That's the 2 little squares. And you see we have this background color and we have layer 1. Now you can compare these layers to like transparent sheets of paper. So if we tap the plus, we have another transparent sheet of paper on top here. And we can layer it on top of this sheet of paper. We are going to change our color. We'll go to this one, 4th color in the first row. And then we'll make another hill shape. We'll start here, make a bit of a pointy shape, then up here, and then drag in the color again. Now we are going to make 2 more layers like this. We'll tap the plus, move to another color, this one, 3rd color in the first row. We'll start here and make another hill shape. Down like this, drag in the color, and then another one. Tap the plus, pick another color, this one over here, 2nd color in the first row, go a little bit lower, and then down here, and then again we'll drag in the color. Now, like I said, these are like transparent sheets of paper. You can make them even more transparent once you have painted on top of them. You can tap the N, and here you have the opacity slider. You can move that to the left or right to make whatever you have painted on your layer more transparent. And of course, these transparent sheets of paper can also be rearranged. If you tap and hold them, you can drag them around and move them like this. But we want layer 4 at the top like this. And of course, to keep things organized for yourself, you can also rename your layers by tapping them and then tapping rename. Or if you like to keep layers together, then you can slide to the right to select multiple layers and group them. Then you have one group with all of the hill shapes. But I'm going to undo this. I would like to create a layer for the water on top of this. So we'll tap the plus for a new layer. And I would like to show you what you can do with the selection tool. The selection tool is the S-shaped ribbon over here. And it gives you multiple options here at the bottom. You can create automatic selections, use the freehand. That way you can make a selection like this and closing that. Then you have your selection, or you can use rectangle, creating rectangular selections, or the ellipse for circles and ovals. Now you can build your selection by having this set to add, or you can use remove to remove parts of your selection. Or you can invert it if you want to select everything else. And you can also copy and paste whatever is selected. It needs to be on the layer you are working on. You can feather your selection. You have this little slider. It'll make the edge more fuzzy. And you can also save and load your selection in case you want to use it later on. Or you can color fill your entire selection by tapping this. It'll fill everything inside the selection. And another thing that is handy to know when you have a selection, if you go to your brush, you will only be able to draw or paint inside that selection. So this can be a really powerful way to control your strokes. But we are not going to create this weird little shape. We are going to create another selection. So let's go back to the selection menu. If you would like to go back to the selection you are working with, you just need to tap and hold to get back to that menu. But I don't want this selection, so I'll just use clear. Then I'll set it to rectangle. Let's move this up a little bit. And then start here outside of the canvas. Then go up to about here. This will be the water section. Then I want to pick another color. We'll pick this one, 6th color in the first row, and then use color fill. And now we can get out of the menu by tapping the S-shaped ribbon again. All right, then we will make another layer on top of this. Let's tap the plus. And by the way, the amount of layers you can create in Procreate depends on the capabilities of your iPad. So if you run out of layers at any point, you can go to the wrench, then to canvas, then to crop and resize, then to settings, set this to resample canvas, and then you could make your canvas a little bit smaller, and then your iPad will be able to handle more layers. Or if possible, you could also merge layers. You can do that by pinching them together. But be very careful with this because you lose some editing capabilities once you merge layers. So really make sure that you don't want to work on these hills in the background, for instance, once you merge these. I'm going to undo this. And we are going to work on this top layer. And for our color, we are going to use this first one over here. And we are also going to use the selection tool again. So we'll go to the S-shaped ribbon. We are going to turn off color fill. And now make a selection like this. And remember how we can only draw inside the selection now. So we'll go to our brush. And I'm going to start about here. And I want to create a hilly shape like this. And then you can just drag in the color. And then we'll make another one over here. And drag in the color. And now we can turn our selection off. Now let's say you want to move these around because you're not happy with the placement. Then you can go to the Move and Transform tool. That's the little arrow up here. And with this, you can move whatever is on the layer, you can move that around. And you can also make something smaller or bigger. This is while it's set to uniform, so the ratio will stay the same. If you have it set to freeform, you can change the ratio as well. If you set it to distort, you can create some sort of perspective, for instance. This is very weird in this case, but can be handy for perspective stuff. And if you set it to warp, you can do all kinds of crazy things. And of course, you can flip whatever's on the layer. You can rotate it, or you can fit it to the canvas. And here you'll find the interpolation settings. This is how it calculates the extra pixels it needs when you make your image, whatever's on the layer, bigger. I usually have it set to bilinear. If you tend to get pixelated edges when resizing anything, it's worth it to play around with these. But I'll just use reset to get this back, and I'll set it to uniform again. And then over here we have snapping, and we can turn on snapping to make sure that this layer will stay in the center. You also have magnetics, which pretty much works the same, but it can magnetically attach itself to other layers. So I just want to use snapping and then move this up while we have this vertical orange line. If you want to move a layer just slightly, you can also tap outside of the layer or outside of the bounding box to make it move with tiny little increments. I'm going to place it here and then just tap the arrow again. Next, let's work on our sky, and I'll show you how you can create a gradient in Procreate. We're going to make a new layer first by tapping the plus and then tapping and holding that and moving it to the bottom. Then let's pick a color. Let's drag in this one, third color in the second row. Drag it onto the canvas. And now to create our gradient, we need a soft brush. Let's use the Forester brush over here. And then we'll pick this first color in the second row. The opacity of this brush is at 100%. Let's set the size to 12. And then add this darker color at the top. And this brush has the opacity set to the pen pressure. So the harder you press, the more opaque your brushstroke will become. So this is also super handy. Gives you a lot of control. Then let's move to this second color in the second row. Add that below. Then switch to this one, fifth color in the second row. I want a nice purplish tone. And then we'll move to this color, fourth color in the first row. For some blue in our sky. And then we'll go lighter with this color, sixth color in the second row. And now to make this gradient a lot softer, we can go to the magic wand. This is where you'll find all sorts of adjustments you can add to your layer. And we will pick Gaussian blur. And now to use this adjustment, you need to slide to the right on your canvas, on your screen, with either your pen or your finger. So we can slide to the right like this, and we'll set it to like 36%. Then we can get out of here by tapping the layer menu, and then let's tap the plus for a new layer on top. I like to add a moon to this scene. Let's go back to the brushes and use the Jaeger brush. Now this brush doesn't use pressure sensitivity. It's just a monoline brush, which is handy when you want to create a perfectly round circle. For that circle, let's pick this color, seventh color in the first row. Opacity of the brush is at 100%. Size doesn't really matter. Let's go for 20. And then draw a circle. And then hold your pen in place. This will make it snap to the quick shape. And you can do this with circles, but also with squares or with triangles or just with lines. So this is super handy. Let me undo this. Let's go back to a circle. So draw a circle, hold your pen in place. And if you want the circle to be perfectly round, hold one finger on your screen and then let go. You can also go to the top to circle here. You can move it around or make it bigger or smaller, but it won't be a perfect circle anymore. Now let's place it here and then drag in the color. And then to make our moon glow, we'll go back to those adjustments to the magic wand and then use bloom. And of course you can see loads of options here. I would highly suggest you play around with those. We will select bloom. And again, we need to slide to the right on our screen. And here you'll also have these other options like the size of the bloom and the amount of burn. We can go for something like this. So the bloom is at 21%, size at 43, and a burn at 39. And now we can tap the magic wand again. All right, then let's add some transitions to our hills. Let's go to this layer first. I want to add a little bit of a gradient to these hills, but I don't want to go outside of the shape when I paint with a soft brush. Now to do that, you can tap the layer and turn on Alpha Lock. Now we can only paint on this shape. Super handy. Then let's go to the Forester brush. And for the color, let's use this one, 6th color in the first row. And now we can just go over that lower area a bit and add a gentle gradient. This looks a bit like mist. You can also add a bit of pink or purplish color. This one, 7th color in the second row. Add a bit of that over here. I think that adds a nice touch. Then we'll move to the next one. And to turn Alpha Lock on, you can also just slide to the right with 2 fingers, making it even quicker and easier. Let's go back to this color, 6th color in the first row, and add some like mist here as well. Then on to the next one, turn on Alpha Lock, stick with this color, and add that mist. Then for the next hill, before we add that mist, I would like to add the effect of trees over there. So first let's go to the layer, and now we need another brush. I want to go to the classic Procreate library. So tap that arrow downward, go back to libraries, then to the classic library, and then we'll go to the organic brushes and then to the rainforest brush. And for the color, we'll go for that 2nd color in the first row. Now the opacity of the brush is at 100%. The size is at 2. If you are enjoying this tutorial, if you feel like you're already getting that Procreate addiction and want to really take a deep dive into it, then I would highly recommend you check out my Patreon page, because there I have more than 250 Procreate drawing and painting tutorials. I cover a super wide variety of subjects, and the tutorials range from beginner levels to more advanced levels. So it's the perfect gift to give yourself. If you want to check it out, I will just leave a link for you down in the description. It would be great to see you there. But now let's continue. And now let's go along the edge like this, creating the effect of trees there. Just a little bit of zigzagging. Now sometimes what happens with these types of brushes, like the rainforest brush or anything that has a nice texture like swordgrass or wildgrass. Sometimes they give a color variety. Sometimes that's part of what the brush is like. But if you want the layer to remain like one flat color, what you can do is tap the layer and then turn on alpha lock and then tap it again and use fill layer. That way it'll have just one color. Now before we start adding the gradient here, let's first go to this layer and add some tree edge there as well by picking the first color in the first row and then again going along the edge, adding that effect. Just zigzagging a bit. Something like this is perfect. And now let's go back to this layer and we need our forester brush again. So we'll go back to that other library, the Procreate library. Use the forester brush. And for the color, let's start with this one, fourth color in the first row. Add a bit of that blue here. That looks nice. And then we'll go even a bit lighter with that sixth color in the first row and add that to the bottom. And you don't have to paint on the shape. You can be a little bit outside of it with this soft brush. And then on to this one. First, of course, we need to turn on alpha lock so we won't be painting outside of the shape. And then let's pick this color, third color in the first row, and then add a little bit of this blue to the bottom. Next, let's create a gradient on the water. Now, a way to do that, of course, would be to turn on alpha lock on this layer, or what you can also do, another option is tapping the plus and then setting that layer to clipping mask. So this top layer, set it to clipping mask. You'll see this little arrow. It is sort of attached to the water layer. And now whatever we paint on this clip layer will only show up on this one. The upside to this is that you have more flexibility. You can move it around, transform it, or you could even use alpha lock on the layer that is clipped. Downside is that it uses more layers. So on this layer, let's create a little gradient. Let's go and use our forester brush again. And for the color, let's start with this one, fourth color in the first row. Add a bit of blue over here. Then we'll go to some purple, to this one, sixth color in the second row. So we are kind of mirroring what we see in the sky. I do want some more warmth. Let's pick the third color in the second row. And then go darker with this one, second color in the second row. And maybe even darker with that first one in the second row. Just a little bit. And now we are going to blur that again. Let's go to the magic wand, then to Gaussian blur, and slide to the right to, let's say 20%, maybe a bit more, 26. And then tap the magic wand again. Next, let's make a reflection of these hills over here, these at the top. What we are going to do is duplicate this layer. You can slide to the left, tap duplicate, or what you can also do to duplicate layers, especially if you want to duplicate multiple layers, is drag them onto your canvas and then you'll get a duplicate. Now we are going to clip this one to our water. Let's tap the layer, use clipping mask. Then we'll go to the move and transform tool and then use flip vertical. We can move it down like this. And let's use freeform to squish it just a little bit. And now we can tap the arrow again. Next, I want to blur this layer a little bit. So let's go to the layer first, because if we want to blur it, if we want to blur the edges, we need to turn off alpha lock. Otherwise, the edges won't blur. So tap the layer, turn off alpha lock. And then let's go to the magic wand. And this time, let's use motion blur. And with motion blur, you can decide the angle of the blur. So you can go in a diagonal way to get a diagonal blur, or a vertical to get a vertical blur. You can pick the direction, and the distance you go with your brush, it decides the amount of blur. So we'll go down a little bit like this. And then let's do this again. Let's get out of here first. Then tap the magic wand again for another motion blur. And then slide to the right for a horizontal blur. Very nice. It's at 38%. Then let's move this up a little bit because we have that slight light edge. Let's move it up a little. You can have a little light edge. It's actually kind of nice. Then tap the arrow again. We have a little dark edge here. So we can go to the selection tool, select that top part like this. And to remove that, what you can do is swipe with 3 fingers. That'll clear a layer or clear whatever is inside a selection. Then let's make a reflection for our moon. Let's make a layer in between these. So first tap this layer, then tap the plus. And then for the brush, let's go to the paints and use the Winkly brush. And for the color, we'll use this one over here, 7th color in the first row. Opacity of this brush is at 100%, size is at 24. And let's just make a reflection like this. It's a bit stretched. There is light hitting the water from the moon. Let's go for something like this. And now we are going to smudge this with the smudge tool. That's the little finger over here. This is the smudge tool. This is the eraser. And a good thing to know is that when you press and hold either the smudge tool or the eraser or the brush, it'll automatically select the brush that you have been using with the other tool. So in this case, that's the Winkly brush. But I actually want to go to the inks and use the lichen brush. Now for this brush, I have the opacity set to 44. In this case, that's like the smudge power. And size is at 12. And now let's just make these horizontal strokes like this. You can also rotate your canvas a bit in case that's easier to create the horizontal strokes. It's like playing around with real paint here. Going over with a dry brush, channeling our inner Bob Ross. Yeah, so now you have a very nice reflection. You can also pull it out a little bit. Very satisfying. Maybe make it a bit broader here. Now we could make some more lines on the water, some more like light reflections, increasing the suggestion that this is water. And let's do that on another layer. We can tap the plus. And for these lines, I want them all to be perfectly horizontal. If you go crisscross, it won't look like water. And to create those horizontal lines, what you can do is go to the wrench, then to canvas, and then you can turn on the drawing guide, then go to edit drawing guide. Let me just show you what you can find here. There are all sorts of grids, like the 2D grid, which you can also turn around by using the handle here. You have the isometric grid for isometric drawings. perspective grid. In this case, you need to tap the screen to create a vanishing point, and you can even make multiple vanishing points. Or you have the symmetry tool. This is super handy if you want to create something symmetrical. If you use this tool, whatever you draw on one side will also show up on the other side. And you have different options here. Here you have the options tab. You can go for vertical, horizontal, quadrant, where you have 4 quadrants, or radial. And also in this case, you can just move this around if you want to change it. But in this case, we'll go for the 2D grid, and we will turn on assisted drawing. Now what this will do is, let me tap the check mark. It'll make sure, if you use the brush, that all your lines will follow the grid. So you only have vertical and horizontal lines. Let me remove these. If you don't want to see the grid while you do this, you can go to the wrench and then turn that drawing guide off. But if you go to your layer menu, you will see that this layer still has assisted turned on, which means that the lines will still follow the grid. Now let's make the brush a little bit smaller, maybe 10%, and let's create some of these lines. Creating that suggestion of the water surface. Now right now we are going underneath this layer with that reflection. That's not handy. Let's move this one underneath that reflection. So now when we go here, it'll show up on that layer on top of that reflection. Also add a few here. And to merge these a little bit to make them less prominent, you can always go to the magic wand. Let's go to motion blur in this case and slide to the right like this. And you could also go to the layer itself, tap the N, and lower the opacity a little bit. Like let's say 60%. Now our landscape already looks stunning. There are just a few more things I want to show you. And we will create some wispy clouds while we're at it. So let's go to this bottom layer where we have our sky, and let's make a new layer on top. Let's tap the plus. And then let's use that forester brush again. So we need to go to, where are they? The basics, the forester brush. And we are going to use some lighter colors for these clouds. Let's start with this one, third color in the second row. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, maybe like 5%. And I want to create some curved clouds. So make some like swooping motions. So we'll have some pinks there at the top. We can also add some lighter pink, that fourth color in the second row. Adding some light. And also some of this light purple, seventh color in the second row. And you can slowly build this up. These nice curves. And let's also use this color, seventh color in the first row, here at the bottom for some lighter blue clouds. And to make this a bit more soft, again, you can use the Smudge Tool, of course. But this time, let's go to the paints and use, where is it? The Winkly brush. Opacity is still at 80%, size, well, let's set that to 100 actually. And we'll just go over here, following that shape, swooping motions. Creating an interesting sky. Next, I want to go even lighter. Let's make another layer on top of this. Let's tap the plus. And for the brush, let's go to the paints, brushes, and use the Winkly brush. And for the color, let's use this one, fourth color in the second row. And in this case, I want to change the layer blending mode of the layer. If you tap the N, you will see all these layer blending modes. And I would highly suggest playing around with them. In this case, we are going to set the layer blending mode to screen, which is great for adding light effects, just like color dodge and add. Those are very nice. And if you want to create shadows, multiply is very nice. You don't have to use all of these. I usually stick with multiply, screen, sometimes color dodge, add, and overlay. So play around with these, see what the effects are. We'll go for screen. Like I said, it adds a nice light effect. And for the size of this brush, let's set it to 40%. And let's add some more of these curved lines. Also with the purple, that seventh color in the second row. And also with the blue, let's use this one in this case, sixth color in the first row. That would be light enough. Something like this. Now we can blur this just a little bit by going to the magic wand and to Gaussian blur. Slide to the right. Let's go for 4%. And if you go to the layer menu and tap the S, you can also lower the opacity a little bit, making it a bit more subtle. Let's go for 60%. And what you can also do, a final option that is super handy in Procreate that I feel like you really need to know about while you are just starting out with Procreate, and that is the option to add a layer mask. If you tap the layer and add a mask, a white layer mask will get attached to the layer. And with this, you can remove parts of a layer or block parts of a layer without destructing it. Let me show you. If you go to the basics, the basic brushes, pick the Forester brush, and then set your color to black. You can do that by just double tapping here. Now let's make the brush a little bit bigger, 12%. You can go over areas here and block parts of that layer, make it disappear. And you might think, what's the difference with just simply erasing this? Well, that's that if you use white on this layer, if you double tap here, pick white, you can make it appear again. So it's like erasing without really destructing or destroying anything. And that is the power of layer masks. So those were really the most important features in Procreate. But I would highly recommend watching my other tutorials here on the channel if you want to learn how to use these tools in other surprising ways. And the more you use these, the easier it will get to use them in your own artworks. Now that we're finished, let's pinch so our artwork will cover our entire screen. If you'd like to look at it without the menu, then you can tap with 4 fingers on your screen. Or if you want to share it, then let's go back. You can go to the menu, to the wrench, and then to share, and then you'll have all these options. You can simply pick a JPEG, for example, and then save your image to your iPad, airdrop it somewhere, message it, whatever you like. So I'd say go ahead and share your work. I would love to see it, and let me know in the comments if this was your first ever artwork in Procreate. I would love to know, and I would love to see you next time for the next tutorial.